Let's talk about Texas. Let's talk about edumacation. Let's talk about separation of church and state. Hi, I'm Gail. Welcome to the Secular Scriptures. And this is 98-degree day. It is absolutely sweltering. But let's talk about Texas and their situation with the proposed addition of biblical passages into their state curriculum. Obviously, we have a separation of church and state issue with teaching the Bible in school exclusively. This would not be a big deal if they were teaching some of the Jewish literature that's not in the Bible, and some of the Quran, and some of the Vedas, and we were teaching Confucius, which is more of a philosophy than a religion. But if you were teaching this as a comparative religion class in literature or like religious literature, that would not be a violation of church and state. That would be like a genre of literature, right? I have a few thoughts on this. Political thoughts. Now, this is a win for the far right, no matter how it plays out. And it will be a win for them if it stays, because of course then they'll get the Bible taught in public schools. And it'll be a win for them if it's repealed, which is in line with the Texas Constitution, so it will probably be repealed. But the reason why it'll be a win there is because they get to claim persecution. So either they get the Bible in school, or they get to claim that they're being persecuted. Win-win. From an educational standpoint, Texas, and I'm just pulling these numbers out of my memory. I did not write a script for this. I apologize. So I may be wrong. I believe it's solid middle at like 25 for overall education in the nation, which, okay, whatever. But in terms of literacy, it's not all that great. So they actually have a decent high school graduation rate. However, a full 60% of those who graduate from high school are functionally illiterate. They are level 1 readers. It means that they are technically literate, like they can technically read English, but that means that they can read short passages with a low level of understanding. They can follow short sets of directions as long as you don't use big words. When you have a 20% dropout rate, and then you have 60% of your graduates who are reading at level 1, like, ooh, that's not good. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's really not good. So from an educator standpoint, it's kind of like, well, you know what? I really don't care what they're reading. Like, I care if they can read. And Texas is highly religious. And if religious stories get these kids reading, I'm like, you know what? On the one hand, Christian nationalism bad, because any nationalist religion bad. It never plays out well, historically speaking. On the other hand, literacy good. I'm kind of torn about that, honestly, because if you have a family who's super religious and their interest is in the Bible, and these kids are interested in reading about Daniel in the lion's den, like when my kid was little, he had this perfectly square white set of books, and they were a series of stories about the heroes from the Bible. And he thought that they were stories about wizards and magic and magical animals. Like, he didn't understand that it was religion, because we raised him secular. If there was a religious thing, we read it as a fairy tale. We did not push it as this is the truth, right? And Daniel in the Lion's Den was one of his favorite stories. He absolutely loved it. He thought that God was a wizard and that he had cast a spell on the lions. And I think that he kind of confused the king and God together, but it's okay. I mean, he was little, right? I do not have a problem with Bible as literature, and one of the classes I taught in the homeschool was Bible as literature, especially for secular families, because these are culturally important stories. Now, do I think that's how they're going to be teaching this in Texas classrooms? Well, depends on the teacher, right? The next problem we're going to run into is that Christianity is so broad, right? Like, there's so many variations, there's so many differences in belief, so many different doctrines and heresies and all sorts of stuff like that, right? Let's say third grader Emma is learning about Daniel in the lion's den, and your teacher is from a different denomination. Like, little Emma's going to come home and say what teacher said, and are little Emma's parents going to completely freak out about this? Yes. Because incorrect doctrine. Emma's learning heresy in public school. So I can see where this is going to go very, very, very badly. One of the things that I had to be super careful about when I was teaching Bible as secular literature to homeschool children, some of whom were Christians, was that I did not step into interpreting scriptures. All we talked about, like, what type of story is it? What are the major elements you can pull from this? What are character motivations? Sequence of events, that type of thing. Like, because I never wanted to be the person to be like, what you believe is wrong. Like, that just wasn't what we were doing in that class. But I also wanted my secular students to be able to appreciate these stories as literature. But then I also see the fallout of this, which is going to happen pretty quickly, which is the denomination struggles and the secular versus the religious versus the Catholic versus the Protestant versus the non-denominational evangelical whatevers versus the Orthodox. I don't know how many Orthodox are in Texas. You know what I mean? I can see this disaster happening real fast. That said, reading is good, kids. The whole purposes of my channel is appreciating the Bible as literature, not as religion. I can see why someone would want to teach these culturally important stories. But we're going to run into problems real fast. This is definitely train wreck territory. I don't have to like it. One of the reasons why I started this channel is to help put a softer lens on Christian literature, to help people who left the religion enjoy this literature again, because when I was a kid, I loved these stories. I fell in love with them. And when I left the religion, it robbed me of the joy of the stories because the religious trauma sort of took over what the literature was. And the literature stands apart from that. It's one of the true things that Christians do say is that, if you went to a bad church, and I went to a string of bad churches, that's not the Bible. And it's true, that's not the Bible, okay? But my churches were teaching the Bible. They were just teaching all the bad stuff out of the Bible. Like, I didn't get love of Jesus. I got hellfire and brimstone, but that's still in the Bible. But I still love the stories. And as an adult on this healing journey, I want to experience these stories, as cultural heritage, as family heritage, as sayings and things that inform our culture. And so with those arguments, I totally understand the reasonable reasons why someone would want to teach the Bible in public schools. But unfortunately, we're at a place where these are not reasonable reasons to teach the Bible in public schools. This is not going to be balanced. This is going to be a nationalist propaganda issue. I do worry about the teachers who have to teach this, because even if they are Christians themselves, they're going to have students who are not the same kind of Christian they are, and they're going to get so much flack from the parents that they aren't teaching it the right way. I'm like, seriously, all of my sympathy goes to these poor teachers that would have to implement this program. Do I think it could be done? Yeah, in lower levels, I think it could be read just like a fairy tale. I really do. I think you're going to end up with a lot of parents really upset. It's a damned if you do and damned if you don't situation. So, good luck, my Texas teacher friends. May God be with you, or not, as the case may be. There's definitely a way to appreciate the Bible as literature. Exhibit A, my channel. There are many others like it. So yeah, I think that the teachers are going to take the brunt of this if it's ever implemented. And it's a win-win for the Christian nationalists no matter what. It's a lose-lose for Texas education no matter what. I don't care what Texas kids are reading as long as they're reading. Because they really need to be reading a lot better than what they are. And I hope that if it does go through, they teach it Bible as literature and really dissect the stories and go that route with it, because you really can. I do that with my channel. Thank you so much for joining me on the Secular Scriptures, and I will see you next Sunday at 9 a.m.